Hi guys, please welcome Mr. Shravan Tickoo. You guys are already known his history and this, which is why you guys are here to talk to him. So please feel free to drop your questions. And thank you so much for being here, sir. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with our community.
Thanks, Ritika. It's a pleasure. Always happy to help aspirants move into this interesting field of building products. So that's whatever little I have done is to help other people. So lovely to be here and help as many aspirants as possible. Yeah.
Thank you. It's certainly such a huge topic at this point because it's like it's definitely either like topic is like the products are huge, right? Like you're either trying to build a company or you are the product, so you're trying to build a personal brand. I'm pretty sure you can please help us across sharing advice
Sure.
across
Absolutely.
all of these fields.
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah.
Uh, Right. So we already have a few people just saying hi, hello. I'm not sure if you're in the app, so you can see the questions.
Yeah, I
I
can't.
see the interactions. But we do have a first question. We have a question from Neha. She's saying, hey Shravan, nice to get an opportunity to ask you certain questions. What do you say is the ultimate measure of success for a product?
For sure. So I think if you have to look at it from a product, what is a product fundamentally? Fundamentally, it is just anything that has value in the real world, right? तभी product manager product का हिंदी में मतलब होता है वस्तु. Vastu basically means anything that has like specific value. If you take a stone, you can build a house out of it, right? So the ultimate success measure is that how do you define value for the end customer? What I mean by that is, for example, if you're using an app like Swiggy, right, and it doesn't allow you to book a order or whatever, right? However good the UI is, however good the UX is, however good the tech is, it doesn't matter if the end customer doesn't get the value that is offered to that you will get the right price, you will get the right kind of discovery, and you will get the right food in the next 30 minutes, right? And that is so the fundamental measure of success of any product is that whatever your hypothesis is. So yeah. So
Certainly.
the fundamental success of any product is that whatever your hypothesis is, are you able to measure the success of that hypothesis for the end customer? And that can be measured through multiple metrics or KPIs that you have heard, key performance indicators. It can be different for different products, right? I hope I answered the question. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, sir. So our second question is from Mehak. He's saying, what will your guidance be for strategies for product promotion?
Got it. So I think the best strategy that I ideally believe, there are multiple ways, but the best way is that if the end consumer is able to use the product in any way, right, and the end consumer is able to speak about it, right, and talk about it, right, that's the best way because it essentially brings a lot of trust. Product promotions should not be like doing it from your own product or something like that will never have that kind of impact if your end customer is actually speaking about it. So the best way is that you build a product, you give it across to your customers, you tell them that this is the value of the product, and if you have built the product in a great way, and if they find a true value, that is one way essentially you can tell your customers to share it across. You don't have to push them to share it across. They should ideally believe that they should share it across. That's one. Then the second way is primarily is if you want to push the product is build something valuable in the product itself so that even if customers are not promoting, they would still say, like, I'll give you an example. For example, going back 20 years, if you wanted to do a flight ticket, the best way for you to was to go to basically some transportation agency and then tell them that buy a booking ticket for us. Now, after 10 years, somebody built this website called Make My Trip, which was an aggregator, right? The next time, and you essentially bought a ticket, you saw all the prices and everything, and you essentially saved like 1,500 bucks on a flight ticket, right? Next time you'll meet someone, the best thing that you will do is, and somebody says, I want to buy a flight ticket, the person would just say, why don't you try Make My Trip, right? So there are two best ways. One is that if you provide the value and you give the opportunity to the end customer to essentially promote your product, that's one. Second is even if the customer is not promoting, there should be enough intrinsic value in the product itself so that people, if they're not promoting it, at least they're sharing it because there is intrinsic value. I am not a very strong believer of marketing campaigns while they are important in order to popularize the product initially, right? But I would ideally believe that marketing should be more organic rather than spending from our side, because pushing something to the end customer never results in great outcomes.
Right. I mean, definitely. I mean, if the product in itself can stand by itself,
Yeah.
then it will completely, like, people will share it, and basically word of mouth carries the product.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing. So then our third question is from Rahila. She's saying, what emerging trends or technologies do you think will have a significant impact on the field of product management in the coming years?
Sure. So I think very interestingly, the field of product management is like two legs of a human body, right? The first thing is like, how do you do good discovery? What I mean by that is, like, I'll give you an example, right? So around like 2 months back, I was with my sister, a cousin sister, and we were in Jammu. I'm basically from Jammu, and I was trying to find dresses for her. Right. And I picked up a 40,000 rupee dress, and she said, no, I don't want to buy it. I don't want to buy it. The first thought that came to my head was that probably it's the price. She's saying, why would her brother spend so much on a dress and stuff like that? So I told her, okay, buy a 10,000 rupee dress. But then also she didn't buy the dress. The real reason she was not buying a dress was because she's slightly healthy, right? And she was figuring out that whether that dress actually fits her or not, or how does she look in the dress, right? So that is called true discovery. Discovery basically means, do I understand the intrinsic motivation of a person, primarily of taking a particular decision? That's the first. The second part is more on the execution part, right? You must have heard this interesting quote, ideas are easy, execution is everything, right? That is actually correct, right? So in product management, building the right idea is one part, but executing it the right way is another part. So I personally believe with the advent of AI, Gen AI, and things like that, most of the execution based tasks would be eventually removed. Right? No product manager would write a Jira ticket. No product manager would actually run a SQL query. No product manager would actually do a wireframe, because everything is done. The major focus would be primarily on the discovery part. That's why, as a volume of number of people of product managers would go down, but primarily the value of every product manager in the org would go up. So maybe the number of people will come down, but the value of each PM in the company, because PMs actually add value in terms of insights. We don't code, we don't design, we don't market, right? But our core value is that what is the number of insights per minute that I can deliver to the org so that they can make a decision on top of it, or their entire organization can make a decision on top of it. So I personally believe with the advent of Gen AI, it is going to give a lot of time on discovery, which is actually a good thing, and you will be able to see a lot of disruptions in that space. So it's great that if you can learn skills like LLMs, prompt engineering, and things like that, but not with the intent that you're going to replace discovery. Discovery is never going to go away, right? The only intent is it's going to save you time. It's going to collaborate. It's going to give you, if you are getting 2 hours today for discovery, it's probably going to give you 5 hours. And that's how you will move ahead. Yeah.
Sounds good. So I mean, definitely, I'm pretty sure the follow-up question to that would have been how AI is going to change, disrupt the field. But definitely, I think you gave us two-part answer right there. So moving on, Lavia had a question. She said, hello, Shravan. I want to know, are there any resources or courses you recommend for individuals interested in pursuing a career in product management?
Sure. So once again, I would say that I have done last week only, I did a course that how do you choose a particular course for product management, but I'll give you a gist, right? So there are like 8-9 factors which essentially make you a good product manager, or at least align you towards it. The first thing is, how do you do discovery? Do you understand the theory of discovery? How do you do user research, right? How do you collaborate across people? How do you lead people? How do you effectively then build a culture in the organization? And there are how do you learn from case studies, from how do you upskill? And there can be bunch of 6-7 things, right? And there are multiple ways, right? You can do that. You can go to my channel. I think it has enough content you can read from there, but it has its own limitations. You don't get one-on-one access. You don't simultaneously get a community around it, right? People have qualified complete product management roles in Apple, Google, Microsoft from my channel itself. But there are people, and I would never say that taking a CBC of like 50,000 rupees or 60,000 rupees is going to be a bad thing. It's not. right? It really depends on where you come from. And a lot of people ask me this question also, do I need an MBA to become a product manager? Completely dependent on you. But what I would still recommend is that even before that you think of pursuing a course, do two things. The first thing is go through the free content that's available on YouTube and other places. You can check out my channel and other places, right? That's one. And second, speak to at least 8 product managers who you follow, at least 8, right? So that you have enough context of where you stand, right? That do I understand enough theory? Do I have the right skills? Do I have the right network? Do I have do I have enough understanding of what do you mean by collaboration and things like that? And make a matrix for yourself that I'm good here, I'm good here, I'm good here, I'm good here. If you feel out of 6 out of 8 places you're great, you don't need a course. You don't even need a 500 rupee course. If you feel no, my theory is good, but I don't have a network, I don't know how to reach out to product managers, right? Second, I don't have connects with great leaders and learn from them. Third, I don't know how to collaborate because probably I'm in an org which is completely top down and my voice is not getting heard. Then it's great to join a CBC, because then you will not only just learn, but you'll also get opportunities to go to different places. Like when I used to run a CBC, a lot of the speakers that I brought in, people got eventually jobs in their companies, right? So completely dependent. I would definitely recommend for this, check out my channel. My channel's name is Swagwala PM. I have done recently a video on the very same topic. How do you choose a course and how do you do that? Go through it. It's going to add a lot of value. Yeah.
Definitely, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I mean, I'm sure our audiences will love to check out your channel, get more information that they're getting here, like, more in depth, because I'm sure this
Absolutely.
is slightly limited, but definitely this is a great chance to connect one on one, as you said, like, adds value to the original segment.
Yes.
So Victoria had a question. He says, sir, for someone who's an owner of a small business, what will your advice be for them? Because small businesses don't shoot up soon. They take their own sweet time.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that you have to essentially understand is that one of the mistakes that most entrepreneurs do, and I've been fortunate to work with a lot of entrepreneurs in the last 9 years, is that people think that it is about building the product that is more important, right? Building the product comes very late, right? So I'll give you a very interesting example. So I used to consult for Nearby, and I'm sure you must follow Ankur Warikoo, and I know for a fact, right? So I used to work for them as a product consultant, right? So the one problem that they essentially faced was always that people used to take their coupons and essentially go to a restaurant maybe after 2 months or 3 months or whatever, and the restaurant used to say you cannot use these coupons because we already have bookings, right? So there was a disconnect. Their value offering was that for every restaurant you will get a discount and etc. and whatever. But people were not able to use it. Do you know what we did? We didn't build anything, right? We put up a Google form and asked them, when do you want to come? That's all, right? And 90% of the problem was solved because the restaurants already knew that this is the time when the customer is actually coming. Right? So one of the things that I want you to focus on is do very right discovery. What I mean by that is it is very important for you to intrinsically figure out that what the customer wants, right? It is not about if you just go to a customer and ask him that this is what you want, the customer 99% of the time would say yes, this is whatever, but that always fails. Right? Like, I'll give you another very simple example. If I ask 10 people, what do you want in a car? Right? Out of those nine people would say the same 4 things which everyone is saying, that it should have great mileage, it should have great seating capacity, it should have great boot space, it should have good looks, right? No discovery happens there. But on the contrary, if you take a car to them and say, this is Santro, what do you like in the Santro? They'll give you 25 different things that we don't like this, we don't like this, we don't like this, we don't like this, right? And that is where true discovery happens. So you spend considerable amount of time on doing discovery, figuring out what is their pain point, and then figuring out a solution on top of it. That is when you will actually see some traction, because then people will try to feel that, okay, it is solving some problem of mine, right? The major problem that happens with most companies is that they don't do discovery well. They have their own hypothesis, their own bias. They build a product on top of it, and then they say, yaar, koi use hi nahi kar raha. Yeah, we have built such a great product. We had such great engineers. We had such great design, but nobody's using it, right? So most of the times, I will tell you, it's not about finding the answer. It's about understanding the question right. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Asking the right questions, I think, is the key
Absolutely.
takeaway
That's
there.
critical. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Great, sir. Jared had a question. He's like, hello, sir. What are the primary factors that could affect product management while building a strategy for product marketing?
Sure. So I think one of the things that you have to already always understand is that it is not always about building a great valuable product. It's also about the consumption of that product, right? What I mean by that is, if you build a great product, right? And a lot of times you must have heard this, that it was too futuristic for the time, right? A lot of products you say that it was too futuristic. The problem is not about that. There is a reason that most companies have this hierarchy. There is a product guy and there's a business guy. Why do you think they need both of them, right? The product guy would make so much sense, right? Because he has done the discovery, he has built the product, he has done everything, right? Why do you need a business guy? The business guy is for translation. That how do you essentially understand that the end customer in 15 seconds would be able to understand the value prop? So the first thing that you have to see is that whatever the value prop of my product is, am I able to communicate it to the customer in 10-15 words? As simple as that. I'll give you one more simple example. Uber does cab bookings for you. For example, if you open the Uber app, it takes you 25 minutes just to figure out where to do the cab, even though the value is the same, right? You would never use the app, right? Same. I would ask you another question. Why do you use Gmail and not Rediffmail? Very same question. Very simple. Same value, same product. Everything is the same, but you still use Gmail. Right? The reason is it is equally important for a product marketer to distill the value prop in such a way, right? So that the end customer is able to understand that in just 15 seconds, that these are the three things that I'm going to get. These are valuable things and I'm going to use it. So while you're building a product marketing strategy, always try to figure out how will the end customer receive this information, right? And then you effectively have to break down that maybe there are 20 features. You would say these 20 features don't really add that much value. Maybe these three things actually add a lot of value, and that's what I'm going to promote on my landing page, right? So product marketing should always be in sync with the pillars of value of the product, right? And that is what you have to, that is where the great part of a great product marketer comes, that how do I essentially, like, I'll give you one very good product. And that is where I learned most of my product marketing. The one very good product which I want all of you guys, if you are there, is Duolingo. Duolingo is a language learning product, right? Do you know what was their tagline when they used to promote their product? There was nothing on the page. There was just one line written on the page, and the line was, learn a language for free forever. And that did it. That became viral. And everybody learn a language for free forever. That was the only communication that they never talked about their features. They never talked about their what is their gamification, what they did and whatever and whatnot. They just said, learn a language for free forever. And that's it. So I think the primary part, be in sync with the value prop and try to make it as concise as possible so that the end consumer understands it. And that can also happen through TG discovery. Awesome.
Sounds great. I mean, that's really nice to, like, I think some of us understand that on some level, but having that put in front of us, like, okay, how to do that and how to this, like, what is the USP of a product, and that USP should be the one serving the need for the consumer.
Absolutely.
Everything else is just add on.
Yes.
Right. That's amazing, sir. So then I will just move on to the next question, which is from Arman. It's like, hi, sir. Product managers often have to balance various stakeholders and priorities. How do you prioritize features or projects when faced with competing demands?
Okay, fair enough. So I think there are two ways to kind of think about it. The first way that you have to always think about is that what was my product strategy? So product strategy, what it means by that is that at any given point, there is a vision that this is where the company wants to reach. Like the vision can be a 10-year long, it can be as broad as taking humanity to Mars. That's how broad the vision can be. But the pathway to that vision always changes, right? Every 6 months it might change, right? So it really depends on the priority of the company, that maybe at this point of time I want to focus on profitability, I want to extend the runway of the company, and I want to keep the product alive. Maybe I would not focus on growth right now. Now what happens is, when you set up those priorities in a room full of all your leaders, your ops leaders, your marketing leaders, your engineering leaders, your design leaders, whoever those are, and you put across that these are the 3 or 4 things that we are going to focus on in the next 6 months. As simple as that. And the second important part there is, that is the second thing that I want to talk about, is how do I translate them into mathematical KPIs? Right? It should not be opinion based. Like if Ritika says, I like this, Shravan says, I don't like this. Who do you believe? Right? So there has to be a mathematical coefficient around it. That basically I would measure this to believe that the fundamental hypothesis that I bought for profitability makes sense. Right? So if you do that and you set that tone across the company 6 months back, then you plan a roadmap on top of it. Then any request that comes to you, you start to measure from those 4 lenses, 4 priorities. That does it fit in any of the 4 priorities? Right? If it fits in any of the 4 priorities, then you essentially try to see what is the impact, what is the effort, and whatever, and whatnot, and whatever, and you'll fit it in. But trust me, 95% of the things that come randomly never fit into the 4 priorities. And you are easily able to say no. Abhi mere ko is pe nahi sochna. Like somebody yesterday you came to me, said we want to launch this product and in Hyderabad and do something like that. I asked him the very same question: what is it going to improve? The person said it's going to bring revenue. Maine bola, is revenue a top line a priority for me? He then went back and said, no, it is not a priority currently. We want to become more profitable on the bottom line. I said, you have your answer, whether I should prioritize it or not prioritize. So the worst mistake that product managers do is that they don't build a very strong product strategy almost 3-6 months behind. There can be 10% here and there, right? But 90% of the time, it should align to the entire thought process of the company, the product, the startup, wherever you are working. Awesome.
That sounds great. I think that's something a lot of people struggle with. They're like, let's try it and see, and say, even though it does not necessarily fall in place with their strategy.
Sure.
So that's great, sir. All of these points are really on point rather. It's amazing. So we have another question from Alia. Sir, could you tell us about the motivation behind founding the product tree and what impact it had on the product management community?
Sure. So I think the motivation was very clear here. I'll tell you, it was my story. So what really happened for working for the last like 8-9 years now in product management, and been very fortunate to run a startup, sell it across, and do things like that. What I realized after like 4-5 years, when I was started to write on LinkedIn, maybe I'm talking about early 2020, I think 3 years back when I started kind of writing on LinkedIn, I realized that most people are writing jargons, and product management doesn't happen that way. Right? In true sense, you are not writing systems on agile and stuff like that and whatever, that those are scalable systems. But majority of the times, the kind of companies that come out of India are generally startups in their early stage, right? They want to move fast, they want to shift fast, they want to know fast, right? So what I wanted to do was, this thought process was that, can I build something where I can really talk about the true sense, the value of product management, right? So for what at that point of time, I realized that developers, long back, you would see that in the last 25 years also, devs used to use humor a lot and sarcasm a lot to tell that this is not what you should do, this is not what you should. And I realized that in product management, it is very similar. Like you would hear a lot of product managers saying that don't release on a Friday, right? Because if your product breaks, there is no one on Saturday, Sunday to effectively fix it, right? So I started this thinking that I would want to build a community where I can just be open about what I wanted to be as a product manager, what I learned from it. And that's where I started. And fortunately, it grew up. It had a lot of people from like 30, 40 countries, and people started getting jobs because essentially people started to relate far more than the gyan that used to get popularized on popular platforms, because most of time, theory is never reflective of the actual scenario. Unfortunately, it happens like that, right? People who have written theories were based on their own experiences at that point when they felt that so, right? So context and learning always changes, right? And that was the philosophy. And that is when I started my YouTube channel. It became decently big and whatever and whatnot, right? And things started to roll that way. But I think the intent was very clear, that how do you build the building mindset in people and be a part of a community where people can just share their opinions very openly and be fun about it, and there are no restrictions about it. You don't have to be very political about it. You can write anything about it, and you can just learn from good people around. Yeah.
Sounds good, sir. I mean, definitely, I think product management is one of the, like, a need of the hour currently, because as
Right.
you were saying in the beginning, like, you're either you're trying to build a product, or you're trying to build like, you are the product around which you're trying to build a brand. So I mean, you have experience for both, I think. You help build products and build your own, like, YouTube community and everything around yourself. So I mean, that's great. Alright, so another question we have from that is, we know about popular companies and products like Apple, WhatsApp, etc. Outside
Hmm.
of these companies,
Hmm.
which have a great product culture, according to you?
Sure. So I think it really depends on industry to industry, but I think most of the innovation that comes across in our world is comes from very engineering heavy companies, right? Where engineering is focused. I'll tell you why. The reason is very simple, right? Because engineering can be scaled. Your marginal cost of adding one more user to an engineering focused company is practically zero, right? Like, I'll give you an example. WhatsApp was started by like 20-25 engineers, and the latest, their current strength of engineering is like 50 people, right? Similar is Postman is an API specific API discovery tool and API things, and they have like a 40-member team, and it's like a $4 billion company, $5 billion company. So the point that I would just necessarily would put across to you is, I think there are companies in every domain. I would not say that there are not fintech based good companies, or there are not edtech based good, or not healthcare based good companies. There are, but the density of true innovation would always be focused on more engineering heavy companies, right? So companies like Intercom, companies like Duolingo, companies like Reddit, right? And all of these companies they have very strong Pinterest, very strong engineering cultures. Even in India, you would see companies like Postman, Browser Stack, a lot of companies who have very dense engineering cultures. And I think that is where a product manager truly learns the art and craft of building products, because there he understands that I have to desimplify the complex engineering for my user, right? Even though I have to value the complex engineering, that is where value comes, but I want to desimplify it in such a way that my end customer, and that is where you will see culture. That is where you will see value. Because one of the things that I deeply respect about a great culture organization are two folds, right? The first thing is that in a good culture organization, there is very high talent density. They just hire great people, right? They would not care about that. They would say that we want the best quality people. That's one. The second is they also promote a lot of radical candor. That I am a product manager, I can go to my CEO and just tell him that this makes no sense, right? So if you have good candor in an organization and you have great talent density, then everything leads to constructive criticism. Then Ritika and me would not fight on, everybody would fight for the final goal, right? And that is where you would see a lot of good culture. So probably one of the very good methods for you to figure out whether the company has a great culture is just reach out to their PMs and see their responsiveness to you as a person. That is a very good indicator. Like whenever people ask me ki, sir, mere ko offer mila hai, how do you essentially ascertain that should I join or not? I tell him one simple question. I say, if you've gotten an offer, ask your reporting manager to spend 1 hour with you and ask the most difficult questions that you ever had. Like, why did you hire me? Why did you hire these people? How do you think about hiring? And ask them. And if that person is very, very calm and collected and tells you about this is why our process is, very good indicator. But if the person becomes irritated or doesn't give you time, then why do you expect he will give you time in the organization even when you have not joined, right? As simple as that. Yeah.
That's great insights. I think that's, I think, relevant for, I think, everybody across all feeds and careers. I mean, that's amazing. So then we have a question from Juveria. Like, how
Hmm.
does growth product management differ from traditional product management? And what
Sure.
strategies have you found to be most effective for driving growth?
Sure. So I think growth product management is just like a byproduct of like the core skill of being a product manager, right? So growth product managers focuses a little more on towards the top line and the financial metrics of the company, which is like driving revenue, figuring out how do you reduce CAC. CAC is customer acquisition cost. How do you reduce that? And how do you do things on those lines, right? So you effectively work a lot closer to the marketing where money is being spent and simultaneously the business team, right? That is where most growth strategies come. And their growth product managers build two kinds of strategies, which are kind of long term and kind of short term, and they have to focus a lot more on short term because eventually their goals are aligned to that. In the next quarter, I want to make like 2x the revenue that I made in the previous quarter, right? Unlike a product manager in a company like Microsoft, where they can just work for a year and then release a feature and then say that we'll check it out, that whether that feature actually worked or not or whatever, right? But growth product manager has like very strong experimentative bias. So you have to become very strong in experimentation. You have to be agile in experimentation. Maybe in a typical technical product management or a business product management kind of a role, you might do like 5 experiments in a year, which are like major experiments, right? In growth product management, you would probably see doing 100 experiments in like 6 months, right? And 95 of them failing, right? So one of the things that you have to essentially understand is that you will be far more closer to the business metrics, right? Far more accountable of the business metrics. But simultaneously, what you have to also understand is that there's a pitfall to growth product management. You always end up becoming too much focused on the top line of the company that you let go of the experience behind. You have to keep the user experience also as hard. There are things that you build which don't have any monetary incentive, but you build them for the experience, right? That is where most growth PMs essentially. So most growth PMs, if you're coming from a marketing background, from a sales background, probably from an accounting or a finance background, growth PM role might be one of the best roles for you, right? Because you have worked very closely with those people, understood how campaigns work, understood how landing pages work, understood how discovery works and things like that. But simultaneously, if you really want to become a good product manager, you should also focus on the principles of design, right? That how well the product was designed, not only from a UI or a UX perspective. I'm also talking from an engineering perspective. I'm also talking from an operations perspective, right? There is a lot of focus there. So whenever you build a growth product management strategy, please give also importance to these pieces, which will eventually evolve into your strategy, your growth itself. And that is where practical growth of things will happen, because if you will put good concepts over there or good experiments over there, people will automatically promote you. Yeah.
Sounds good, sir. So Maham had a question. It's like, thanks for your time, Shravan. My question to you is, as a product mentor at Big Shift and Upgrade platform, how do you approach mentoring aspiring product managers, and what are some common challenges that they face?
Sure. So I think 2-3 things, I think, which is very, very important. See, mentoring in a general sense, right? A mentor is only someone who just guides, right? That's where. So whenever I thought of mentoring, right, I always thought of myself. So I was a backbencher in school. I'll be very honest. I was never like the studious kid, right? Fortunately, with God's grace, I had some intelligence in my head and I could qualify IIT and whatever and whatnot. So people generally see that story. But honestly speaking, till 10th grade, I was like a backbencher, right? Nobody cared about Shravan Tickoo in school. So they said that कुछ करेगा जीवन में, दुकान खोल लेगा शायद at max, right? और कुछ नहीं कर पाएगा. But so whenever I think of mentoring, I always think of who is the person sitting in the back, right? Can I make content simple for him? Because if I do it for him or her, right, then it's automatically going to help other people, right? So the first thing that you should always feel is that whenever you are a mentor, right, you should have deep empathy for people who are coming from very random backgrounds, who have zero context, and if you can build things for them, and if you have humility for them, right, then you have automatically have humility for everyone. That's the first thing. The second thing that I always promote is that mentorship is not just about giving theory. It's also about telling them that they can do. It's about listening from people who they can relate to, right? Why do I call myself Shravan Bhaiya on LinkedIn? ऐसा कुछ नहीं है यार कि मुझे भैया बनने का कोई शौक है, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं. The only reason is that कई बार क्या होता है ना कि जो लोग जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल देयर इज अ QA, like for example there is someone who is just a fresher, right? He sees that this guy is a popular influencer, he has been in these companies, he's an investor and whatever. 99% of the time he doesn't have the courage to reach out to me and say कि यार कि मुझे आपसे पूछना है कि कैसे कर सकता हूँ, क्या कर सकता हूँ, right? बट जब उनको भैया दिखता है ना तो उनको लगता है कि नहीं यार, he is our elder brother. That's what he's doing, right? And then they reach out to me. And trust me, people have written me like 10 passages that bhaiya mere life mein ye problem hai, ye wo hai. And that is the second thing that meant it should always give a sense of belongingness, right? That I am with you, right? That is the second thing. And the third thing is it should also have a retrospective behavior. What I mean by that is mentor to mentee relationship is not a one-sided relationship. It's a two-sided relationship, right? If I give some gyan, right, and you are not acting on it, then you are not respecting the mentor by itself, because उस बंदे ने अपना टाइम निकाल के आपको दिया, right? तो अगर आप, whenever you start thinking from those lines, that as a mentee, there has to come a point, right, that where I start adding more value in the conversations with my mentor, that is when the mentor would actually give you even more time. यार इसके साथ तो मुझे बात करके मजा आ रहा है, right? I'm learning from this guy, right? He's going, and there are a lot of PMs which I've helped, and after like 3 months or 4 months, I wanted to talk to them. Ki, bhai, dude, insane stuff, right? You're making this Chrome extension. There was this very interesting guy. So I'll give you the story. One very mentor, a mentee in 2017 was basically working as a APM somewhere. And he said, sir, I need mentorship. And we did multiple things and whatever and whatnot. Eventually, he built something called Lechal. Lechal was a slipper which was for blind people, and it had responsiveness on top of it. It used to connect to Google Maps, and it used to tell blind people where to walk. Do you know what happened? This guy got an admission in MIT Media Labs, and he's doing his PhD in MIT right now, just because he was super curious, and he said that whatever I'm learning from Shravan, I just want to build something on top of it. And he actually built it, and right now he's in MIT, and I text him, dude, kab tere paas time kab hai, mere ko baat karni hai tumse. So that's how things work. I think these are the 3 principles of mentorship which I try to follow. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, like that's great to hear, and that's so nice to hear. But I think even as students, we've never had that kind of a connection, especially in Indian, I think, context. Teachers have this thing where they have to maintain a certain a distance or a kind of a thing. So I mean, like, that's amazing to hear. I think that's both teachers and students can learn from that.
Yeah.
Rahila wanted to know is like, how can product managers stay updated and adapt to the evolving trends?
Sure. So what I would recommend is that is slightly like tangential advice, which generally most other PMs would not tell you. But for me, like, I'll tell you, product management, do you know the reason when people ask me this question, how do you have so context? How can you connect like something random, completely random to a different concept and then teach us? And that is what students on YouTube and other places typically ask me, "Aap kaise karte ho?" Matlab, is it because you are too intelligent or whatever and whatnot? I used to tell them this very interesting thing. The only thing that I had is not because Shravan is intelligent, not that I'm deeply intellectual, not that I'm the best product manager in the world, nowhere close. The only thing that I was really good at was that I had this innate love for knowledge, right? I used to read anything and everything, right? Be it philosophy, be it religion, be it psychology, be it mythology, be it mathematics, be it music, right? Anything that interested me, I started reading it across. So whenever I tell product managers that 50% of your time, read product books, read the lean product playbook, read some great product managers book, but 50% of the time, just read whatever interests you. Whatever, it can be movies, right? Most of the onboarding experiences in product management I've learned from the game Mario, because I used to play it a lot. I used to feel that, okay, so in Mario, you would realize, you would also remember, Ritika, you used to move from left to right, and there was no way to go back, right? So it essentially told the user that this is the next way, right? And gaming, why games are so interesting is because you cannot move to the next level before completing the previous level. So you already made the end user accustomed about it. So answering your question, so the philosophy that you have to understand is that reading voraciously, meeting people, learning from experiences is extremely important as a product manager. If you don't do that, right, then you're not learning, because product management at its very core is solving ambiguous problems. What I mean by that is, I'll give you another very small example. So remember when Uber started, right? They started giving rides and whatever, and they never built a security feature over there. But once they realized is that women were getting, there were issues, there were harassment issues and stuff like that, right? At that point, they realized, oh, wow, we also need a security feature, right? Because that is now, maybe in US, the crime rate is lower, right? In other places, the crime rate is actually higher, right? If the driver is not well educated, if he takes the person to some random alley, there has to be a way to figure out, because we are accountable, right? Now, while they were developing the product, they never thought of it. But Once they actually launched the product and took feedback and talked to more people and stuff, and they realized it, right? So the insight is that they talked to so many people, they gathered feedback, they understood it from a lot of dimensions, and then they figured out, oh, there is one more variable, right, which we have to incorporate. So my recommendation, read anything and everything, spend consistent time reading voraciously, talk to more people, be humble about it, don't get fettered by opinions. So the last thing that I want to leave you with is that most of the times when people talk to product managers or leaders or whatever, a lot of people tell them, यार तुमसे तो नहीं हो पाएगा क्योंकि तुम्हारा बैकग्राउंड ही ऐसा नहीं है, या तुम इससे नहीं हो, या तुम उससे नहीं हो. देखो यार, लाइफ में मैं तुम्हें एक सिंपल बात बताता हूँ. जॉर्ज बर्नार्ड शॉ long back wrote this very interesting line which is like, opinions are trivial, feedback is not. मैं एक छोटी सी एग्जांपल देता हूँ. When I started sharing memes on LinkedIn, right, everybody told me, dude, what kind of joker are you, right? Why are you sharing memes, right? In 6 months, the very same people told me, can you come to our organization and mentor our product managers because we want you to. So I'm not that I'm trying to say that I was impressive or whatever. I'm saying opinions are generally trivial. कोई मतलब नहीं होता उनका, कोई मतलब नहीं होता लाइफ में. So जो भी अच्छा लगता है 50% टाइम उस पर स्पेंड करो, रीड voraciously, spend value, give value to your time, right? 50% of the time follow some good product managers, learn product concepts, build a portfolio and things like that. And that is what is your general strategy to become generally better in ambiguous concepts or in random situations that you would come across. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, thank you, sir. I mean, as Deepak said, through that Shravan Bhaiya so beautifully said, I think that defines this entire session. So, I mean, sadly, guys, we are at the end of the session. It's coming to a close. So we don't want to hold Shravan Bhaiya too long either. So, but thank you so much, and taking the time, talking to our community. All of these insights were amazing to have.
Thank you very much, Ritika.
Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure, and once again, super lovely to meet. At any point of time, if you would love to call me back, or if you want to do something bigger about it, super, always available. Thank you.